So the WNBA are using, if we're going to be honest, they are using, I'm not going to say false data, but very much misleading data to diminish Caitlin Clark's impact on the league. And it's one of those things where I understand it from, like, for example, like, you know, where ESPN PR constantly compare things to 2020 to 2023, and remember Elle Duncan was basically saying, oh, Caitlin Clark's an anomaly, this isn't real growth and stuff. And it's like, if that's the way they want to look at it, if they want to take away everything from Caitlin Clark and say, look, Caitlin Clark is just an anomaly, we have to look at how the league's growing without Caitlin Clark, and we have to look at without Caitlin Clark numbers year on year to see the actual growth of the league, and see how much the league's actually growing. If that was the perspective of it, and that was the way it was being talked about, and Caitlin Clark being an anomaly was talked about as a positive thing and not as a negative thing, then it would be one thing. But to use skewed numbers as a way, with Caitlin Clark's injury, as a way of basically implying it's a good thing Caitlin Clark is injured, which absolutely Time Magazine, worst case scenario, they did. But also to basically use these fake numbers and say we don't need Caitlin Clark because of these fake numbers. And fake numbers that were heavily skewed because the Indiana Fever played more games. And who would have guessed that, you know, Caitlin Clark fans would be fans of Caitlin Clark's team when Caitlin Clark wasn't playing? Who would have ever guessed? Who would have ever guessed that, you know, the new fans that everyone was saying for years, for the last year, that, you know, the new fans were there for basketball reasons? Like, oh, you know, it's the old fans that don't care about basketball. The new fans are really there for basketball reasons. Even though it was the old fans that were trying to say, oh, they don't care about basketball, they're just here because they're racist. Who would have ever guessed that that was true? Because the WNBA, they will use skewed statistics, and it will come to the outcome of the new fans stayed because they like basketball, and then they will still try to make it in a way that, you know, oh, the league's better without Caitlin Clark. That is now what it is. The league grew in attendance year on year. Could it have been because there was a team called the Golden State Valkyries, who were a brand new team in the perfect market for women's sports, who sold out every single arena, and every team played 4 extra games? So counting everything by total viewers, it would have been an absolute complete disaster if all 12 teams played 4 extra games. Again, like, I don't know how many exactly games extra it was, but all 12 or 13 teams all played 4 extra games in the season. So there, and trying to make it so that that's not like, obviously that's one of those things where if they didn't have more viewers, it would be an absolute disaster. I'm saying it's up 5% average year on year. It's like, okay, why is it up 5% on average? Does the Fever play a whole bunch more games? Like, we have to call a spade a spade. Like, they're using misleading numbers. And then again, when it came to the TV ratings, a lot of people don't understand that starting from February, they changed how they did the ratings. Then they changed it again in September, to the extent where everything was up basically 25%. So the playoffs were up 5%, despite the fact that the Indiana Fever games in the first round were drawing... A random Indiana Fever regular season game was drawing more viewers than the last game of the finals. And at least in 2024, every single game on the finals drew more views than the last. Drew more viewers than the last. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, Game 5. Every single one progressively went more. In 2025, Game 1 had more viewers than 2024. Game 2 didn't. Game 3 didn't. Game 4 didn't. And it went down game by game by game. It went down every single game. And Game 1... And you might be saying, oh, but, like, you know, it was a blowout. Game 1 was literally won on 2 missed free throws and a game winner. It was won on 2 missed free throws and a game winner. And still, like, 400,000 less people watched Game 2. Because nobody cared. And they are using misleading... And it's one thing, whatever, about you can use misleading statistics. Use statistics in whatever way you want, realistically. But when you are using those statistics specifically in a way to put down another player, which the league is doing, by the way. The league, and I stand by this, again, because the league are promoting all this stuff in the media, you might be saying, oh, it's not the league, it's just the media. No, this is the league, the media the league is promoting. Never forget again, the league on their own platform in Caitlin Clark's rookie year, a month into her rookie season, she had already had 2 30-point games at this stage. had an entire segment on their social media. They had an entire Twitter space, and it was about who the rookie of the year is. Who didn't get a mention? Or who got mentioned? It was between Cameron Brink and it was between Angel Reese. And do you want to know why they decided to go with Angel Reese? And do you know what the deciding factor was? They thought Angel Reese's tunnel fits were better. Do you know who got a mention in the rookie of the year conversation in a post on the actual WNBA platform? Do you know who got a mention? Nika Mule. Nika Mule hadn't scored a point in her career. In her career, up to this point, Nika Mule had not scored a point. She got a mention and Caitlin Clark didn't in a rookie of the year talk on the actual league. So yes, I am absolutely. And that's the funny thing is that when you're seeing people that don't give a damn about basketball, they're losing their jobs in WNBA media. And you're seeing the people in actually talking basketball doing well. And then there's all these legacy WNBA media, they're just out there complaining, being like, we don't get opportunities. Well, yeah, you're shit at your job. You got the job. You got the job basically because you're one of the only people willing to cover a league that a couple of media, like a lot of media outlets, needed somebody to cover it, and you were there, and it was easy. But as soon as the league got bigger and people are better at your job than you are covering that league, just because you covered the league for longer doesn't mean you're good at your job in a lot of these situations. And that's the thing where it's like, I talked about in the video earlier, the league are essentially doing everything they can to diminish Caitlin Clark. And not only that, like, they are, if you dig into every single number, the league went down 55% in viewership last year when Caitlin Clark got injured. As a league, it went down 50. The national TV games dropped 55% in viewership. In fact, the Fever games dropped by a lesser percentage than non-Fever games. When Caitlin Clark got injured, people cared less. The percentage decrease in viewership was greater in non-Fever games. When Caitlin Clark got injured, the Caitlin Clark and Fever fans became less invested in the league as a whole. They became significantly less invested in the league as a whole, and therefore the totality of the views went down because the majority of views for every team, not including the Fever, the majority of viewers for the entire league were Fever fans. The majority of the league's viewers were Fever fans. And by the way, you guys see it every time Caitlin Clark plays a stinker. The people that claim to be fans of other teams are actually just Caitlin Clark haters. They don't watch their other teams play the games. And the best example is when Paige Beckers dropped 44 points. You saw very few posts about that game while it was going on. But as soon as the game was ended, it was, oh, Caitlin Clark could never do this. Like, I mean, Caitlin Clark did also have a 24.19 assist game, which was a lot more impressive than 40, but so be it. But it's one of those things that it was like, these people were only looking at it after the fact because they're not watching these games. It is the craziest thing about the actual viewership when you look into it is that the fans that came because of Caitlin Clark are the vast majority of people that watch the WNBA. And all that is now happening is that you're seeing every single one of these things that's happening with the media, this smear campaign by the media and the league itself. All it's doing is turning off people that could be lifelong WNBA fans. At the end of the day, look, I'm somebody that will watch. The reason I watch women's college basketball over men's college basketball is purely because the players are going to be there for 4 years. It's as simple as that. The players are going to be there for 4 years. The reason I watch the WNBA is it's on during the summer when I have more time. There's too many games in the NBA. I like basketball, whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, college basketball, Irish basketball. I like basketball. So I'm going to be here. But to say that if this wasn't my job and like Caitlin spends another season injured, why would I give a damn about watching any other player? I mean that. Because any player that's actually fun to watch gets killed. But like you're seeing it now. The best example I'll give is Tanaya Latson. Tanaya Latson was my favorite player to watch in college basketball last year. She is a shell of herself at South Carolina. And everything is like, oh, but she's playing real basketball now. Dawn Staley's made her better. This is how she's going to have to play in the W. It's like, yeah, be ordinary. She's become ordinary. And that's the thing. All this legacy stuff, they just want players to be ordinary. They don't want players to stand out. They don't want players, because at the end of the day, basketball is an individual sport as much as it's a team sport at times. Like, yeah, you need to fit into a system. But like, you better believe when it's time to take over, you've got to take over. There has to be a level of individualism, which you saw from, like, Paige Beckers was never as free as she was at Hopkins. She went to UConn. You don't see it in a lot of players. You don't see that level of freedom. You don't see that flair at the WNBA level, and that, especially even at college. And that's what you saw in Caitlin Clark. That's what you saw in her. It's the reason why so many people gravitated towards it. You saw a player who just played the game confidently, shot what she wanted, and won. But the reality of the situation is that, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the league's doing, but they're fucking it up bad. But anyway, I'll see you guys.